Well, welcome back to Guff Stuff Games Weekly Hobby Store thing.
It's a podcast.
Yeah, podcast. There we go.
And I'm Javen. Today we're going to talk about uh, character slash civilization slash faction slash class maining in a game.
Maining in the game. Yep.
So what do we mean by that?
I think what you mean by it is, I agree, is your main faction you play, the main class you play, the main character you play in MMO, so on and so forth. Example would be if I was playing World of Warcraft, my main for me would be, say, most of the time my main was a warlock.
Okay.
Now it doesn't always work out because sometimes you need to, but that's my main. That's the guy who I log in, the first character I log in to play. Now I'll switch characters as I need.
All your goodies go to that character.
Yeah, that's the primary. Or if I'm playing StarCraft, my main would be the Zerg.
Ugh.
That's just who I would log in to play the first time.
Yeah.
Well, it used to be the Terrans, but it's such an overpopulated thing that the Zerg just seems like the second best choice in my mind. Protoss were just too neo-Nazi sounding for me. So super soldiers,
I always I like the idea of maining and like not even in video games either.
Oh,
so like Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, blue.
Everybody knows exactly. Everybody knows I'm a blue player. If Javen's playing blue,
yeah.
He's trying. He's trying.
Yeah,
hard.
he's doing his best now.
Yeah, he's actually gives a shit about the match.
Right. Yeah. You can go with any game. Yeah, maining is
Yeah, and it's this idea of learning the ins and outs and the specialities of an individual thing. You see it in even things like fencing is another great example. You have people that do like sabers specifically.
Okay.
You have people that do epées.
Yeah.
And you have people that do foil.
Okay. Nothing about most of that.
But it's this idea that like if you're gonna learn something, and sports is another great example.
Right.
A kicker, a punter are not going to play quarterback.
Well, they shouldn't.
Typically. Right. There's edge cases all the time, but it's this idea that like you become very good at one specific thing, very specialized, and you take that to a higher level then.
Right. What's that?
I said specialization is for insects.
There you go. Okay, there you go.
But yeah, so like let's talk about it a little bit because I feel like in my experience in gaming, I'll use Dota as an example because I'll use Dota and StarCraft as our examples.
Okay.
So in Dota, typically you have a hero pool. There's a group of heroes that you learn very well, and they're usually tailored to a specific role, like off lane or one of the main roles, 3 position.
Right.
And then you adapt your strategy based on that role that you're playing for each of those characters. So like there's lots of layers to the specialization. But also in games like Dota, you have people that are considered one tricks, like a one trick pony.
Right.
And they play one character, no matter what they're doing, they're playing that character. And they can play that character in situations where most people would never be able to play that character.
Right.
Because they've played so many different matchups, so many different scenarios with that specific thing that they can begin to utilize it against things that they shouldn't be able to.
That makes absolute sense.
And then we'll hop over to StarCraft.
Right.
And you can do this in a lot of games too, but StarCraft, there's this option to random. And a lot of people, like on the ranked ladders, will play random.
Right.
Because in StarCraft, you don't know what you're playing against until you go over to their base and you see what race they are.
Right.
And so now all of a sudden, openers that become very important, like walling off your ramp against Zerg so that they don't run up there with 2 Zerglings and kill everything, you don't know if you have to do that right away. Right. You actually have to go and spend an extra 20, 30 seconds with a probe, if you're Protoss, to go over there, scout it out, and make sure that you're not going to just get run down right away.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
And so there's this idea that like randoming in games and playing a lot of different things also has merit and value.
Right. Yeah, I can't disagree with that if you're competitive stuff. I generally don't do competitive stuff, so I just do what I'm comfortable with. I don't mind playing outside my comfort zone, and I'm okay with it. And generally, like Zerg's was never my first choice anyway. It was actually Terrans.
Yeah.
And I relied on siege tanks and just beefed up Space Marines to do all my work.
Yep.
Yeah, Space Marines, right?
Marines.
We're just Marines. Oh, Space Marines. Yeah, Warhammer.
Yeah.
Okay, so just Marines and siege tanks. Pretty much can win the game with just those two.
Yeah.
But, it gets to be there's 100 players and 90 of them are playing Terran. So I'm like, well, that's boring.
And if your
Play something
TVT
different.
matchup sucks, you're going to
Yeah.
switch to something else.
So then I just switched over to Zerg because there was just nobody else was playing it, and I happen to like it now. So
Yeah. And there's also the idea that, like, there's certain games where a lot of people will have, like, a couple. Let's go back to that idea of a pool.
right,
Of, like, you know how to play X amount of factions or characters, so that if you are playing against someone who you know is very good at something, you can play something to counter that.
right,
That's a very viable option, especially in, like, upper tier competitive games where you have picks and ban phases a lot of times in tournament play.
right.
Like Northgard is an example of something that we've been playing recently, where if someone goes Raven Clan and you don't have another Raven Clan on your side of your team, you're just going to lose the game because the clan is just so overpowering. Or
Okay.
Wolf Clan. If someone's playing Wolf Clan, they have that early ability to just run you down. That if you don't have another Wolf Clan to build up a military early, you're just going to get steamrolled.
Interesting. No, I guess I haven't played that deep, that game that deep yet.
But it goes into, like, a podcast we talked about a long time ago of party composition,
Right,
where a lot of times, like, especially in multiple play and team play, you need to have a rogue, a barbarian, or a warrior of some sorts, a
Right.
rogue of some sorts, a priest of some sorts, a cleric or whatever, and then a wizard of some sorts.
Right.
You need to have all of those things together to make
That's-
so you're not blown out in
That's
certain
what game
fights.
designers want you to do.
Exactly.
Essentially, they design their games for that purpose. Now, I have been playing a game again that I played. It's probably one of the first real hardcore MMOs I ever got into. Ultima Online.
Okay.
And the reason I like that game over probably any other MMO I've ever played is it's an open sandbox, so you can go anywhere you want.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously consequences for doing what you want in the game, but it's all skill based. You just whatever you want to raise for your skill, that's what you raise. You don't have there's no template. You have 30, 40 skills to choose from. You have 700 points to choose from, and you just keep raising those skills. So if I want to raise my thievery and raise my snooping and raise my hiding, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I want to be a tamer, I can do that. If I want to be a smithy, I can do that. In fact, I can be a taming smithy if I really wanted to be. Right. I won't be as good as the pure tamer or the pure smithy, but I will be okay. But this gets me to my point that there are companies out there that could do a game really well without pushing you into channels.
Yeah.
And I think Ultima Online did that very good. The game itself is published. It still runs. And I'm not playing on the pay version right now. I'm playing on a free private shard, which is probably bigger than the pay version right now, just because it has like 3,000 to 6,000 concurrent users at any given point.
Oh wow,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
For a game that's 20 plus.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of. That's more people than played.
Right now, my go-to guy is literally what I call a scavenger. You log in, he can stealth, he can hide, he's got a little bit of magic. Some lock picking, so if he comes up onto a chest he wants to loot, he can. But if he finds a dead body, he can take that too, because he doesn't care if he goes gray. He doesn't care if he becomes a bad guy. He's a scavenger.
Yeah.
Think of post-apocalyptic world. That's how I treat the character. And he does so many things good enough. And that's all you really need. Unless you get the guy who is very exceptional at hunting you down, which you can make. You can literally make bounty hunters that all they do is track bad guys down. It's the epitome of the main.
You mentioned a term that I want to talk about a little bit, because I've heard it before and it's usually only in the MMORPG.
Right.
And that's a pure.
Yep.
And that's the idea of, like, you purely go for one set of skills.
Yeah, exactly. That would be the main, like, if you were really hardcore, and I have done that, and a pure Dexter, for instance, which in this game, Ultima Online, is somebody that all they do is melee combat. You ask them to cast a recall spell to get home, they ain't doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They may have a rune book that helped them get home, but hopefully they have a buddy somewhere that can get their ass out of their trouble. Yeah. But you go toe to toe with them and pretty much any monster in the game, and they'll hold their own. They'll just do it because that's all they're good at.
Right.
That's the peer.
It's funny that you mentioned Ultima Online because I used to play an MMORPG called RuneScape.
Yeah.
And that's a very similar concept. Right. Everybody's basically the same when you spawn in. You have X amount of levels and everything.
Yep.
Level 1 usually and everything.
Yep.
And then you start hitting things with certain attacks, you gain strength. Start hitting things with certain attacks, you get defense.
Right.
Kill things with magic, you get magery up.
Yep.
And so like all these little skills add up together to make a well-balanced character. If you get 99 in everything, you're maxed out in everything, right?
Right. Well, you can't do that in Ultima. There's no maxing everything.
Okay.
There are limits. Like you have 30 skills to choose from, 700 points, and then you have 225 points you can put into 3.
So you are pigeonholed a little bit.
Yeah, I think it makes it. You have to pick and choose, and I kind of like that. It makes it so you can't have somebody that's has all 31 skills maxed, all 3 of your attributes maxed straight. You don't have a god character for instance.
It's like the same concept as point buy in an RPG.
Right.
Like a tabletop RPG.
Yep.
Like when we played 5th edition, I liked doing standard array for all of my characters. A lot of people like to roll stats, and so they'd be a little upset when they come to play with me. But I would explain to them, like, rolling stats is fine. It's fun. It has its place.
Right.
But the trouble is, if people don't roll good enough stats, most players just don't have an interest in that character.
Right.
Like if your stats aren't good enough, you just kind of set the character aside and maybe try again.
Right.
And so at that point, you're kind of defeating the purpose of rolling stats.
Right.
Like, why would you roll stats if you're not going to like what you get? And so the standard array for that, what it allows people to do is pick their specific stats and then pick a stat that's not so good.
Right.
And it puts everybody on the same playing field.
Yep.
And at that point, it makes it easier for there to not be so much animosity between players. Like if someone rolls 2 18s in D&D, everyone else at the table is going to feel like if a rogue rolls an 18 strength, they're going to hit better than the fighter that has a 16 strength.
Right.
And that can cause problems at the table. And it's not like everybody gets a participation award kind of deal.
Right.
It's just a matter of like, you have 5 people that are sitting down on the table to play a game. You want everybody to be enjoying
in that aspect, you want everybody to have it equal, just to have fun.
Yeah, and it's not even like it's a competition or anything. Like,
just roll your eyes, it's fine.
But no, it's like, don't get me wrong. There's definitely merit and value in the idea of having someone who rolled really well.
Yeah.
But if you're going to commit, like most campaigns nowadays last a year plus.
Right.
And if you're going to do that, you want everybody on fairly equal footing to start.
To start with, yep. Yeah, if they earn their way up, that's
exactly. That's like if you earn your way up, that's fine. If you want to, when you hit level 4, put more into your stats, go nuts.
Right.
Like that's what the systems are in place for.
Yep. Yeah, the all that stuff is kind of all goes the same thing whether you're on board games or it's almost always the same tactic. Especially if you've won. Like if you play Risk, you have an idea if you're playing this country or your Axis and Allies or whatever you're doing. You have an idea of how to cow the board or Monopoly.
That's the idea with the main is like learning a specific thing really well. Like when we play Scythe,
right?
I know that if I get Rusviet, the equivalent of the Russians in that game, I'm going to clean house.
Right.
Because I know their strategy very well. It's very simple to execute, and it's nigh impossible unless if someone else is as good as I am at Rusviet to deal with it.
Right. Yep.
So that's the benefit of a main, right? Is that kind of back to the original topic, that if you learn something really well, you just kind of know how to beat everybody with it.
Yeah.
Or at least you can compete with someone else who knows something really well.
You're more likely to have more fun doing it. I know that if I log into a MMO or any game and I play the main, I just have more fun because it's something I'm familiar with. I'm comfortable with it. It may
Yep.
not be somebody else's ball of fun. You know, like 'cause there's times where I've spent, say, maybe a year working on a crafting character in a video game as my main because literally that's all I did.
Mm-hmm.
Sat at the freaking smithy pounding away so I can make that GM Mastercraft, Valorite armor in UO that, maybe only 24 people in the server had done
Yeah.
at that point. It's a long time ago. That's an accomplishment. That's a main. A lot of people be like, that's boring as hell.
Yeah, well,
and it is boring as hell. Don't get me wrong, but it gives me enjoyment. I have some pride in it.
Another game that's actually really good at and kind of rewards people who quote unquote main is Foxhole. And we've talked about this game a little bit.
Yeah.
But Foxhole is a game where you spawn as a soldier and you can do literally anything on the battlefield that you want to do.
Right.
If you want to drive a truck in the back lines and deliver supplies to the front line, you can do that. And the people that are Logi mains are a different breed because they're so efficient at what they do. They can pump out resources so fast. But you ask them to go drop mortar,
Soldier, we need you on the front lines.
Yeah,
with the mortar.
We had an instance in this last war that we fought in Foxhole where one of our Logi guys was like, "Oh, I want to try out infantry," and so we were leading an infantry defense, and we're fighting against one of the biggest clans. It's a coalition of clans on the server, and this guy was just dying over and over again, and just being frustrated, and it's like. You got to go through and you got to learn how to do it,
Yeah.
You can't feel like you're not valued because if you went back to the Logi lines and started working back there, without you doing that, we can't do anything. Like we literally can't shoot these bullets if they're not here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we've been running into that with another game that we've been playing. It's Mech Warrior 5. You have roles that mechs play. And if you don't play the role that you're in the mech, it just is a disaster.
Yeah, if you're in a light
if you're in a light mech,
yeah.
And I've been playing a Locust lately, and if I run up to an Atlas, he's just gonna look at me, stop me, and I'm gonna be dead. And that's gonna be literally the end of it. But if I do my job, I run around the outskirts, just tagging people with my radar, so everybody else can see them,
and cleaning up tanks and helicopters and lighter vehicles.
Then it usually goes pretty smoothly.
Yep.
But yeah, the whole idea behind main and all that is pretty important. To learn your roles.
Yeah.
Spend some time doing it too. Like there's nothing wrong with say, hey guys, I'm gonna play this tonight and just tell them why you're doing this. Like that way they're not thinking you're just trying to hog. You just want to learn the role.
Yeah.
That's what I told when we started playing Mech Warrior. Normally I would like to play mid-level to high-end mech.
Yeah,
because I like that getting dirty, but I decided that if I was going to play with a group of people, that I wanted to play the little mech this time. Because I actually like that concept, but when you're playing single player, you can't do that.
Well, and the thing is,
AI is garbage.
In that specific scenario, you were filling the role that I was filling.
Right.
And I like doing light mechs and running around and doing that. And when we swapped out,
right,
that's your role now.
Right.
And if you don't do that, there's nobody to do that.
Right.
And then you suffer because of it.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the idea of the whole party composition, but you'll never be able to main a mech if you don't practice it either.
Right. No.
So that kind of comes into it too.
Yeah.
We've been kind of experiencing this in Northgard a little bit now, where we're playing against the hardest difficulty bots,
right?
And some of us have been playing against other players, and if someone picks a certain clan, you're not going to pick something that's adjacent to that clan.
Right.
Like if someone picks a supporty clan that just wants to sit back and make food and feast for everybody, someone's got to be the guy that goes out and kills everyone.
Let me guess, Guard makes food for everyone.
No, I think she does, but she's going to transition, hopefully, into she's been playing some late game clans and some aggressive clans too. So everybody's kind of been learning all the roles. But what we're doing, rather than picking a role, we're picking clans that we think are interesting.
Right.
And then those clans just happen to work best in a role.
Right.
And so then we swap positions based on what clans we're playing.
Makes sense.
Another one that's been really fun is we've been playing a lot of Age of Empires 4.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been playing as the French in that, and they're very cavalry intensive.
Right.
And so I need a player if we're playing teams, I need someone who has good spearmen and good frontline to kind of pave the way for my cavalry. Because if I just run my cavalry into enemy spears,
they're just all dead.
They're just dead. They're just not going to live.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I haven't bought that for Steam yet.
Pretty good. They did a good job on it. I think we've talked
I
about
played
it
it on the
before.
Xbox Game Pass, but I haven't played it on the Steam yet.
Yeah, we've been delving into ranked now in our play group, so
Nice.
been finally trying our skills against the ladders and seeing how everything's been working for me.
Good.
But yeah, like don't get me wrong, like I'm definitely in most games I play, I just random whatever I'm playing,
Right.
and then just kind of make do from there. Because that's the kind of play style I like.
Right.
I just like to do something different every time, keep it fresh.
Well, if you know the game mechanics, especially on something like Age of Empires or something, even if you just rando it, you can, for the most part, as long as you know the game mechanics,
Yeah, if you have a fundamental
you
understanding,
can
yeah.
hold your own.
And the other reason I like to do randoming, and kind of go wide rather than narrow with my pool, is that if if I play a character and I lose really bad to another character, oh, okay, well that character kind of beat this character. You learn something
Right.
that way.
Yeah, I learned that when I was playing. I think it was the Age of Empire. They had the Persians in the two.
Yep.
You get your ass beat by the Vikings constantly, and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, you can. You have to figure out what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
Once you do, all you have to do is initially just stop that onslaught to the Vikings running through the woods and coming into your base and just slaughtering you.
Yeah, if you can live past that early game, you're good in the late
Once
game.
you figured out the late game, the Vikings didn't stand too much of a chance, but
you learn that because you beat your head against the wall with the Persians so many times.
yeah,
You quote unquote mained the Persians for a while,
yeah,
and then
I wouldn't want to do that again though.
Yeah.
I don't want to bang my head against the wall. I'd rather just take the good team right away. So
yeah.
I don't have too many years left. I don't want to play 5 years in one game.
Oh, but this concept bleeds over even into games that aren't necessarily competitive.
Oh yeah,
Like look at Project Zomboid. We've been playing that.
Yeah.
Or we played that for a while.
Yep.
And we had people that in that game you got to pick a speciality
yeah,
because you right away with the amount of people we had, and the amount of zombies we had, there was no way that we were all going to be able to just
no,
be axe wielders and run around and kill zombies.
No.
Because we'd starve to death.
yeah,
Someone had to learn farming and fishing and all that other
yeah.
stuff.
No, that's true. Had to have a doctor. Had to have all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a lot of main stuff.
But yeah, but I guess long story short, if you're playing in like a friendly casual environment, I don't feel like it's as necessary.
Right.
But if you want to play at like a higher level or get really good at something, I think the best strategy typically is to pick something and stick with it.
Right. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. No, that's for sure. That's the easiest way to do things. You just stick with it, learn the weaknesses, figure out how to stop people from exploiting those weaknesses, and just go with it.
Yeah. This will be a little bit shorter episode,
Yeah,
but I think that's fine.
Yep.
So, anyways, we'll see you next time.
Later.